The Galactic Council never feared humanity because fear requires respect, and humanity never earned that in the eyes of the stars. Among empires that bent gravity to their will and species born with weapons fused into their flesh, humans were an anomaly that barely registered. They had no class, no natural armor presence, and no evolutionary advantage that justified survival beyond their own planet. Earth was catalogued as unstable, divided, and emotionally volatile. A world whose dominant species still fought wars among themselves while pretending to dream of the stars. The Council classified humanity as a temporary phenomenon, a civilization unlikely to survive long enough to matter. When the Zytheron Empire began its expansion, no one thought to warn Earth. The Zytheron were not conquerors driven by ideology or greed. They were exterminators. Their fleets did not demand surrender or tribute. They arrived, erased all resistance, and moved on, leaving behind silent systems where civilizations once thrived. Entire cultures vanished without a final transmission. Stars burned alone over worlds reduced to dust. Empires that had ruled for tens of thousands of years collapsed in mere weeks. The Council observed every extinction with growing dread, yet still did nothing. Resistance had proven useless, and survival depended on staying unnoticed. When Zytheron expansion reached the inner regions of the galaxy, a meeting was finally convened. Evacuation plans were discussed, surrender protocols debated, and desperate alliances proposed. Then a delegate asked a question that filled the chamber with amused disbelief. What about the humans? The answer came quickly. Humans were fractured by ideology, culture, and history. They were governed by emotion rather than logic. They could not unify their planet, let alone defend it. Warning them would only create panic and wasted resources. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not be informed. Earth was officially deemed irrelevant. What neither the Council nor the Zytheron understood was that humanity's weakness was an illusion created by misunderstanding its past. Humans had not evolved in peace. They had survived on a planet that punished complacency and rewarded endurance. Their history was written in adaptation, sacrifice, and survival against odds that should have ended them countless times. Humanity had learned long ago that survival did not come from strength alone. It came from refusal. When the first Zytheron probe entered the Sol system, it expected no resistance. Earth had no reputation, no alliances, no reason to matter. Instead of silence, the probe received an open transmission, broadcast openly and without threat. A human voice warned them to turn back. The Zytheron responded the way they always did. With weapons fire. The probe never returned. Its destruction sent shockwaves through Zytheron command, not because it was unexpected, but because of how it happened. Human weapons were crude by galactic standards, inefficient and inelegant, designed not for dominance but for last stands. Humanity had spent decades observing the galaxy quietly, listening to the signals of civilizations that vanished, learning from every extinction they could not prevent. Earth had never planned to rule the stars. They had planned to survive them. The Zytheron returned in force, expecting a swift correction. What they encountered instead was something the galaxy had not seen before. Humanity unified instantly. Borders dissolved. Conflicts ceased. Old enemies stood side by side without debate. There were no speeches, no treaties, no grand declarations. There was only instinct. Humans understood extinction better than most species because they had faced it many times in different forms. When the Zytheron fleet arrived, humanity did not pretend they could win. They prepared to endure. Human ships advanced despite overwhelming odds. They fought knowing their weapons were inferior and their numbers insufficient. They sacrificed vessels to slow Zytheron advances by seconds. Crews stayed behind to overload reactors manually. Ships rammed enemies not out of strategy, but necessity. Every human death was calculated not for victory, but for time. The Zytheron struggled to comprehend this behavior. No species fought like this. No civilization willingly accepted annihilation without seeking surrender. Humans were not trying to defeat the Zytheron fleet. They were trying to protect something. As Earth's defenses collapsed one by one, evacuation vessels launched under constant fire, carrying children, knowledge, culture, and history into the dark. Humanity understood that survival did not always mean winning the battle. Sometimes it meant ensuring something remained. When the Zytheron finally broke through Earth's final defensive perimeter, they expected fear, silence, or surrender. Instead, a message was broadcast across every known frequency, translated automatically into countless languages, reaching worlds that had already accepted their fate. Humanity spoke without anger or desperation. They admitted their flaws openly. They acknowledged their weakness, their youth, and their lack of power. They declared they were not united by blood, empire, or species-wide ideology. They were united by choice. They announced that if extinction was the galaxy's future, then humanity would not face it quietly. If no one else would stand, humans would stand alone, not because they believed they could win, but because surrender was unacceptable. That message changed the course of the war. The Council watched in silence as something unimaginable occurred, a response. A single fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth, followed by another, then dozens more. Civilizations that had hidden in fear answered the call, inspired not by human strength, but by human defiance. Species that had already resigned themselves to extinction chose to fight instead. The Zytheron withdrew, not because they were defeated, but because they encountered something their calculations could not predict. A species that refused to disappear. Earth's classification was updated within days. Humanity was no longer labeled fragile or irrelevant. Across star charts and council records, a warning was added that would echo for generations: do not underestimate humans. Because when the galaxy chose survival through silence, humanity chose survival through resistance. And that is why the stars remember Earth.